speaker. He too had a brief interaction with Minister Jaishankar. Both men were pictured exchanging a handshake. And I know it's just courtesy, but it's also very significant because this was the first India-Pakistan interaction since Operation Sindoor. It's high on symbolism, but not much else. Let's focus on Ishaqdar's absence instead. Was it a political statement? Is it a sign of distance between Pakistan and the BNP? Because India sent their foreign minister to Dhaka, so did Nepal, Bhutan and Sri Lanka. The Maldives sent their education minister. Only one regional country sent a speaker instead of a minister, and that country is Pakistan. The same Pakistan that talks about creating South Asian blocs. So it's hard to see this as a random decision. Either way, this is a crucial time for Bangladesh. Yes, the BNP will mourn Khaleda Zia, but it must also begin campaigning in earnest. Because this election is make or break for them. They have spent close to 20 years out of power, and if the Jamaat wins the upcoming election, who knows? Maybe there won't be any more elections to fight. There's a new trend in geopolitics, claiming credit for peace without doing the actual work. First, it was US President Donald Trump, and now it is China. Their foreign minister Wang Yi has made a sweeping claim. He says China mediated the ceasefire between India and Pakistan. Listen to this.
Following this Chinese approach to settling hotspot issues, we mediate in northern Myanmar, the Iranian nuclear issue, the tensions between Pakistan and India, the issues between Palestine and Israel, and the recent conflict between Cambodia and Thailand. We have stood firm on the right side of history when it comes to central questions about right and wrong, questions that challenge international justice. We have unequivocally opposed hegemonism and power politics, and we have done our best to provide both moral and practical support to countries suffering injustice.
It's a ceasefire no one brokered, but everyone wants credit for. In case you haven't figured it out yet, Wang Yi was talking about Operation Sindoor. Pakistan-backed terrorists killed 26 innocent civilians in Kashmir's Pahalgam this year. In response, India carried out precision strikes and demolished terrorist camps in Pakistan. India also imposed costs on the Pakistani military. All of this happened in the month of May. The conflict lasted 4 days. It ended with a ceasefire when Pakistan made a formal request. Pakistani generals reached out to India's military. That's the DGMO, the Director General of Military Operations. They made contact with India on the 10th of May. They asked for a ceasefire. A phone call was held between the two sides, and at around 3:35 p.m. on the 10th of May, a ceasefire was agreed upon. No third party was involved in this. There was no back-channel diplomacy or external mediation. The India-Pakistan ceasefire was an outcome of direct military talks. India made this clear on day one, and today India reiterated that fact. New Delhi said the ceasefire was a result of bilateral engagement. Then why is China claiming credit? What are they trying to do here? China is trying to rewrite the facts. It is trying to portray itself as a responsible power and a peace broker. But the reality is very different. China was not calming this conflict in May. China was fueling it. In the month of July, a top Indian Army officer made a big revelation. He said China gave quote-unquote live inputs to Pakistan during Operation Sindoor. This included real-time surveillance, strategic intelligence, and coordinates for targeted strikes. Basically, China was aiding Pakistan. This is not diplomacy. This is picking a side. They gave military backing to Pakistan against India, and there is evidence to prove that. Photographs like this one have emerged or did emerge during the conflict. These are Chinese missiles that failed to explode. They were found on Indian soil. Pakistan used Chinese weapons against India. They used Chinese missiles, Chinese fighter jets, Chinese drones, and Chinese radar systems. In the last 5 years, more than 80% of Pakistan's weapons have come from China. These are not the actions of a responsible power. China was actively enabling this conflict and using this battleground as a live laboratory. China used this opportunity to test its weapons in a real-world combat situation and against real targets. Even after the conflict, China did not stop. It launched a disinformation campaign. It tried to discredit the Rafale fighter jet that the Indian side used. The idea was to promote Chinese warplanes, specifically the Chinese J-35 fighter jet. Beijing wanted to boost its military sales, so it began circulating fake images online, AI-generated images that claimed to show downed Indian jets. A report submitted to the US Congress in the month of November confirms all of this. So to sum it up, China armed Pakistan during Operation Sindoor. It supplied them weapons, it provided live intelligence, and it tried to discredit India's military strength. That does not sound like the work of a mediator. That's more like the role of an enabler. And it's unfortunate because 2025 was supposed to be a turning point of sorts, with India and China narrowing some of their differences, with high-level diplomatic contact resuming and direct flights taking off. Even Chinese investments made a comeback this year, but Wang Yi's latest comments are a reminder that this relationship is still quite tricky and that the trust gap, the trust deficit, is still deep. In fact, Beijing is now taking offense over Indian cinema too. They're upset about a new movie, a film called Battle of Galwan. It stars Salman Khan, who is one of India's leading actors. And as the name suggests, the film is based on Galwan, the 2020 clash in eastern Ladakh between Indian and Chinese forces. It led to a 4-year-long military standoff between the two countries, India and China. And now there's a Bollywood film coming out. Only the trailer, by the way, has been released so far. And the trailer has angered China. Their state-run mouthpiece has commented. That's the Global Times. They've published a story calling the film, and I'm quoting, distorted and over the top. India has responded sharply. Government officials say the state had no role in the film. They've reminded Beijing that India is a democracy where creative freedom is protected. Of course, we don't expect China to understand that. But I guess there's a clear takeaway for India from this episode. Working with China may be a reality of life that cannot be wished away, but it's important to be clear-sighted about the challenges. Resolution for 2026? Don't let your guard down. Xi Jinping is already setting the tone for the new year. He's delivered his annual New Year address today. The Chinese president delivered some clear messages on a range of issues, starting with Taiwan, of course. Xi Jinping said reunification with Taiwan is unstoppable. This comes after China conducted major drills around the island this week. It was their biggest ever military exercise near the island of Taiwan. They encircled Taiwan and they made some strong statements. On the economy, Xi Jinping claimed success. He said China had met its growth targets, even as numbers show that the slowdown within China continues and youth unemployment remains high. President Xi also took a subtle dig at Japan and highlighted a controversial dam project on the Brahmaputra River. That's something that India remains opposed to. Our next report has more.
2025 was a year of challenges for Xi Jinping. China's economic engine struggled to fire. A trade war with the United States tested Beijing's resolve. And fresh flashpoints emerged across the region. All of this formed the backdrop for Xi Jinping's New Year address. As always, the Chinese president avoided bad news. There were no admissions, no acknowledgement of setbacks. Instead, a familiar tone. Xi's 2026 New Year message was, once again, a confidence pitch. He talked up the economy. The Chinese president said China had met its targets. There was no mention of the slowdown or the domestic discontent it triggered. On Taiwan, President Xi did not hold back. He said, reunification is unstoppable.
We Chinese on both sides of the Taiwan Strait share a bond of blood and kinship. The reunification of our motherland, a trend of the times, is unstoppable.
This speech came just hours after China ended a round of military drills. The exercises were called Justice Mission 2025. They simulated a blockade of Taiwan. Chinese rockets were fired, dozens of aircraft, naval ships, and Coast Guard vessels were deployed. Live fire drills were held across multiple zones around the island. Xi's words were blunt and directed not just at Taiwan, but at the rest of the world. There is no softening of Beijing's claims, no change in position, and no room for compromise on any front. This message was also meant for Japan. During the speech, Xi highlighted the 85th anniversary of China's victory over Japan.
Day by day the news changes. Is it peace or war?
We solemnly commemorated the 80th anniversary of the victory of the Chinese People's War of Resistance against Japanese aggression and the World Anti-Fascist War, and established the Taiwan Recovery Day.
Back in September, Beijing had held a large military parade. The venue was Tiananmen Square. The guests included Russian President Vladimir Putin, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, and Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif. It was a highly public display, and Xi used this moment to revive wartime memory. He also highlighted a major hydropower dam, a project on the Yarlung Tsangpo River, better known as the Brahmaputra here in India.
Construction of the hydropower project at the lower reaches of the Yarlung Tsangpo River started.
The river flows from Tibet into Arunachal Pradesh, where it becomes the Siang. Further downstream, it forms the Brahmaputra and eventually enters Bangladesh as the Jamuna River. India remains opposed to this dam. It has raised strong concerns about water security, but Xi listed the project as a key milestone and praised it. And finally, the Chinese president ended his speech with a political message. Xi said, "Only a strong Communist Party can make China strong." It was a clear declaration that the Communist Party remains in full control. Xi's speech was not about reflection, it was about projection. With the United States pulling back from the world stage, China sees an opening. Xi Jinping's message made that clear. In 2026, Beijing plans to assert itself even more.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks a lot for staying with us. You're watching Plain Speak with me, Shivani Gupta. Trinamool Congress leader Abhishek Banerjee has launched a blistering attack on the Election Commission, accusing it of harassing Bengal through the special intensive revision of voter rolls. TMC delegation today met Chief Election Commissioner Yanesh Kumar and put forward a list of concerns. So let's take you through those concerns first up. One is lack of transparency. TMC says Aero software still suffers from serious functional flaws. TMC also claimed in its list of complaints that SIR drive is being conducted without any publicly available guidelines. Hardships on vulnerable citizens was raised. TMC says mandatory physical hearing imposes hardship on senior citizens and PWDs. Allegations of bias as well, asking why no SIR in other states sharing border with Bangladesh or Myanmar. Private third-party players issue was raised, TMC saying that there is concern that people are being asked to share their personal details with firm datamation consultancy. TMC also said that state, district and micro observers are being appointed only in West Bengal. It has raised a concern that physical presence of migrant electors is an unreasonable demand being set forth as part of this exercise. Now, TMC has also claimed that the state is being subjected to exceptional and discriminatory scrutiny. Side by side, another fight is also brewing in Bengal with charges against the Bengal Chief Election Officer from the TMC, the ruling party. Bengal CEO, in fact, has tweeted a counter saying 2 complaints have been filed with the police against the CEC and Chief Electoral Officer of Bengal. They have gone on to say allegations appear to be premeditated, unsubstantiated and a crude attempt to browbeat the officers tasked with discharging statutory duties in connection with SIR 2026. Such intimidatory tactics designed to threaten the election machinery into submission and derail the process are undoubtedly destined to fail. No stone will be left unturned to unearth the conspiracy behind these serial and fabricated complaints. Unquote. Meanwhile, Abhishek Banerjee tore into the Chief Election Officer Gyanesh Kumar outside the poll body's office after their meeting earlier today, claiming Kumar lost his temper and deflected questions. Banerjee even said that he reminded the CEC that while Kumar is nominated, he himself is elected. Listen.
वो WhatsApp के basis पे directions दे रहे हैं. A government functioning is governed by official circular and notifications, not by WhatsApp directives. The Union government plans to run the country on WhatsApp. The Election Commission of India wants to run the country and the state on WhatsApp without issuing any official circular.
Now the latest on Saudi Arabia versus the UAE. 2 allies pitted against each other, fighting what's been called a war within a war. It's a conflict that could birth a new but old nation. I'm talking about Yemen. Yesterday we told you about the situation there in Yemen. Saudi Arabia bombed a port in southern Yemen. They said the UAE was shipping weapons to this port, so they bombed it. And why was the UAE shipping weapons? Apparently to arm separatists in the south. Riyadh has now released footage of the operation. It shows an airstrike on the port of Mukalla. Take a look at this. The UAE has denied this claim. It says it did not ship any weapons. But the situation has spiraled out of control. To understand why, let me give you a quick primer. Yemen is a war-torn country in West Asia. It is divided into 2 parts right now. In the north, the Houthis are in charge. They control the capital, Sana'a, and some of the most populous areas. In the south, there are 2 competing factions, and each faction has a different supporter. One faction is backed by Saudi Arabia, the other is supported by the UAE. The group backed by Saudi Arabia is the globally recognized regime in Yemen, and the one that is backed by the UAE is a group of separatists. Now recently, these separatists have been on a roll. They have captured virtually all of southern Yemen, and they want to create a new country called South Yemen. Saudi Arabia is not happy with this. They oppose the demand for a separate country, and they accuse the UAE of backing these separatists. So yesterday, the Saudis drew a red line. They asked the UAE to withdraw from Yemen, and they set a 24-hour deadline. Leave Yemen in 24 hours. That's what they said. And the UAE obliged. Here's what they said. In light of recent developments and their potential implications for the safety and effectiveness of counter-terrorism missions, the Ministry of Defense announces the termination of the remaining counter-terrorism personnel in Yemen of its own volition. So the UAE is pulling out its troops. But that alone may not end this conflict. Because look at what happened in Aden yesterday. Aden used to be the capital of South Yemen. Today it is the seat of the Saudi-backed regime, the de facto capital at the moment. Hundreds of separatists took to the streets yesterday. They are carrying 2 flags. They were carrying 2 flags. One, the flag of the UAE, and the other of the erstwhile South Yemen. Take a look.
القاء العليمي We stand alongside the Arab coalition and alongside the United Arab Emirates, the loyal ally that has stood with the Southerners since the early days of the war in 2015 against the Houthis.
This is a disgrace to every honorable person and every man who knows that this heroic Arab steadfast southern people has, for more than 30 years, peacefully struggled to reclaim its legitimate right and declare the South Yemen.
And it's not just Aden. Similar rallies have happened across southern Yemen, and everywhere the demand is the same. Break up the existing country, create a South Yemen. So tonight, let's take a closer look at this demand, and more importantly, will it materialize? Will a new country be formed? You see, South Yemen has a very interesting history. In the 1830s, this region was conquered by the British, and fun fact, they actually merged it with British India. So the region of South Yemen was ruled from India, from the Bombay Presidency. Meanwhile, the northern part was ruled by the Ottoman Empire. But by the 1950s and 60s, nationalism began to rise. In 1967, South Yemen overthrew the British. And in 1969, communists captured power. So South Yemen became the only communist country in the Arab world. And it remained so until 1990. 1990 is when the Soviet Union collapsed. South Yemen lost its main supporter. Eventually, the regime here also collapsed. And in the 1990s, South Yemen merged into Yemen, so the country was unified. But this union was never a happy one. Northern Yemen was made up of Shia Muslims, and southern Yemen had more Sunni Muslims. And this fault line continues to divide the country even today. The north is ruled by the Iran-backed Houthis, the south is ruled by Sunni groups, and the most powerful among these Sunni groups are the separatists. Which brings us to the second question. Will a separate country of South Yemen be created? Well, the separatists do have the edge. They now control almost all of southern Yemen. They've also taken over oil facilities and strategic islands. But can they retain all of it? Their main backer, the UAE, is leaving the battlefield, plus global pressure is building. Yesterday, the United States got involved. Secretary of State Marco Rubio spoke to the Saudi and Emirati foreign ministers. He has not revealed a lot about the call, but rest assured, Washington does not want to see its allies fighting. Does not want to see the UAE and Saudi Arabia fighting. And same in the Gulf region. Qatar has offered support to the Saudi-backed regime. They want to preserve Yemen's unity and sovereignty. Bahrain and Kuwait have said the same. So the pressure is mounting on the separatists. They will have to take a call. One option is to resist all the outside pressure and just push on for independence. But that could risk more attacks from Saudi Arabia. Some separatists say Riyadh is amassing troops at the border, some 20,000 fighters ready to enter Yemen. And if that's true, things could get ugly. The second option is to give up the land willingly, basically return to the pre-December status quo. And what these separatists choose could determine the fate of Yemen. Will it be a war within a war or a return to the uneasy status quo? Now the latest on Saudi Arabia versus the UAE. Two allies pitted against each other, fighting what's being called a war within a war. It's a conflict that could birth a new but old nation. I'm talking about Yemen. Yesterday, we told you about the situation there in Yemen. Saudi Arabia bombed a port in southern Yemen. They said the UAE was shipping weapons to this port, so they bombed it. And why was the UAE shipping weapons? Apparently to arm separatists in the south. Riyadh has now released footage of the operation. It shows an airstrike on the port of Mukalla. Take a look at this. The UAE has denied this claim. It says it did not ship any weapons, but the situation has spiraled out of control. To understand why, let me give you a quick primer. Yemen is a war-torn country in West Asia. It is divided into two parts right now. In the north, the Houthis are in charge. They control the capital, Sana'a, and some of the most populous areas. In the south, there are two competing factions, and each faction has a different supporter. One faction is backed by Saudi Arabia, the other is supported by the UAE. The group backed by Saudi Arabia is the globally recognized regime in Yemen, and the one that is backed by the UAE is a group of separatists. Now, recently, these separatists have been on a roll. They have captured virtually all of southern Yemen, and they want to create a new country called South Yemen. Saudi Arabia is not happy with this. They oppose the demand for a separate country, and they accuse the UAE of backing these separatists. So yesterday, the Saudis drew a red line. They asked the UAE to withdraw from Yemen, and they set a 24-hour deadline. Leave Yemen in 24 hours. That's what they said. And the UAE obliged. Here's what they said. In light of recent developments and their potential implications for the safety and effectiveness of counter-terrorism missions, the Ministry of Defense announces the termination of the remaining counter-terrorism personnel in Yemen of its own volition. So the UAE is pulling out its troops. But that alone may not end this conflict. Because look at what happened in Aden yesterday. Aden used to be the capital of South Yemen. Today it is the seat of the Saudi-backed regime, the de facto capital at the moment. Hundreds of separatists took to the streets yesterday. They're carrying two flags. They were carrying two flags. One, the flag of the UAE, and the other of the erstwhile South Yemen. Take a look.
We stand alongside the Arab coalition and alongside the United Arab Emirates, the loyal ally that has stood with the Southerners since the early days of the war in 2015 against the Houthis.
This is a disgrace to every honorable person and every man who knows that this heroic Arab steadfast southern people has, for more than 30 years, peacefully struggled to reclaim its legitimate right and declare the South Yemen.
And it's not just Aden. Similar rallies have happened across southern Yemen, and everywhere the demand is the same. Break up the existing country, create a South Yemen. So tonight, let's take a closer look at this demand, and more importantly, will it materialize? Will a new country be formed? You see, South Yemen has a very interesting history. In the 1830s, this region was conquered by the British, and fun fact, they actually merged it with British India. So the region of South Yemen was ruled from India, from the Bombay Presidency. Meanwhile, the northern part was ruled by the Ottoman Empire. But by the 1950s and 60s, nationalism began to rise. In 1967, South Yemen overthrew the British. And in 1969, communists captured power. So South Yemen became the only communist country in the Arab world. And it remained so until 1990. 1990 is when the Soviet Union collapsed. South Yemen lost its main supporter. Eventually, the regime here also collapsed. And in the 1990s, South Yemen merged into Yemen, so the country was unified. But this union was never a happy one. Northern Yemen was made up of Shia Muslims, and southern Yemen had more Sunni Muslims. And this fault line continues to divide the country even today. The north is ruled by the Iran-backed Houthis, the south is ruled by Sunni groups, and the most powerful among these Sunni groups are the separatists. Which brings us to the second question. Will a separate country of South Yemen be created? Well, the separatists do have the edge. They now control almost all of southern Yemen. They've also taken over oil facilities and strategic islands. But can they retain all of it? Their main backer, the UAE, is leaving the battlefield, plus global pressure is building. Yesterday, the United States got involved. Secretary of State Marco Rubio spoke to the Saudi and Emirati foreign ministers. He has not revealed a lot about the call, but rest assured, Washington does not want to see its allies fighting. Does not want to see the UAE and Saudi Arabia fighting. And same in the Gulf region. Qatar has offered support to the Saudi-backed regime. They want to preserve Yemen's unity and sovereignty. Bahrain and Kuwait have said the same. So the pressure is mounting on the separatists. They will have to take a call. One option is to resist all the outside pressure and just push on for independence. but that could risk more attacks from Saudi Arabia. Some separatists say Riyadh is amassing troops at the border, some 20,000 fighters ready to enter Yemen. And if that's true, things could get ugly. The second option is to give up the land willingly, basically return to the pre-December status quo. And what these separatists choose could determine the fate of Yemen. Will it be a war within a war, or a return to the uneasy status quo? Let's turn to Ukraine now. Forget a ceasefire or a peace deal. Things are escalating as another year of fighting ends. Russia is now deploying lethal missiles to Belarus. They're called the Oreshnik. And Moscow is not hiding this deployment, they're flaunting it. What's so special about this weapon? The Oreshnik is an intermediate-range ballistic missile. It can carry nuclear and conventional warheads. These are fitted with powerful thermal warheads. Russia claims they burn at 4,000 degrees Celsius, meaning it can vaporize even concrete. What makes it even more lethal is the speed. The Oreshnik can travel at up to 12,300 kilometers per hour. That is 10 times the speed of sound. It also has a range of up to 5,000 kilometers. So to sum it up, the Oreshnik is hypersonic and nuclear capable. Russia used it against Ukraine in November last year. Back then, President Vladimir Putin called it unstoppable. He said no defense system could stop the Oreshnik. That's why Belarus wanted it. They claim Poland and Lithuania are threatening their borders, so they asked Putin to deploy these missiles, and Putin obliged. But this was not the only escalation. Russia also fired some 127 drones at Ukraine's Odessa city. Kiev says around 100 drones were shot down. The rest slammed into a residential building. Take a look. I guess this was to be expected because on Monday, Russia made a bombshell allegation. They accused Ukraine of firing drones at Putin's residence, of trying to kill the Russian president. Ukraine had rejected those claims. They said Russia was trying to derail the peace talks. And until yesterday, Moscow had not given any proof. But today they have published a video that shows Russian soldiers standing over a downed drone.
Есть подрыв.
Боевая часть данного беспилотника представляет собой фугасный заряд весом 6
The attempt to slip through our defensive lines and overload our air defenses failed. The crew operated as planned and all targets were destroyed. The drone's objective was a protected facility in the Valdai district of the Novgorod region.
Well, that's hardly a smoking gun. You cannot identify the area or the date from that video. Nonetheless, it is something. It is more than a random allegation. The question is, can Russia convince the rest of the world? Can they convince the world that Ukraine did indeed fire at Putin's residence? At first, US President Donald Trump appeared to believe Russia. He said he was angry at Ukraine's actions. But now the US is backpedaling. Their NATO envoy says things are unclear.
Well, I know that there are reports from the Russian side that this alleged attack at one of the presidential palaces by drone or drones, it is unclear whether it actually happened. You know, Ukraine is receiving drones and missiles every single night into their capital city. And, you know, all they can do is fight back.
I'm sure Western intelligence agencies are on the job. A lot will depend on their assessment, whether they think the attack happened or not. Ukraine's President Zelensky is quietly confident. He says his allies have the capability to verify the truth.
Regarding the attack, our negotiating team connected with the American team went through the details, and we understand that it's a fake. And, of course, our partners can always verify, thanks to their technical capabilities, that it was fake.
Zelensky has some momentum right now, but on the battlefield, not on the battlefield, but on the diplomatic table. He met Donald Trump over the weekend in Miami. After that, both leaders were upbeat. Trump said a peace deal is now closer than ever, so Zelensky is looking to capitalize on that momentum. He has announced two crucial summits. The first one will be organized in Ukraine on Saturday. It will bring together national security advisors from Western countries. The second one will be organized in France. French President Macron will host European leaders next Tuesday. These meetings make Ukraine's goal quite clear. They want to move fast. They want to put pressure on Russia. But Moscow is not in a hurry, it seems. They have an edge on the battlefield. So even if the talks fail, it doesn't matter to them. Russia can secure its goals on the battlefield. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. In the last few weeks, there was genuine hope of a breakthrough. Ukraine's allies thought that peace was indeed possible in 2026. But at this rate, we need a miracle.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks a lot for staying with us. You're watching Plain Speak with me, Shivani Gupta. Trinamool Congress leader Abhishek Banerjee has launched a blistering attack on the Election Commission, accusing it of harassing Bengal through the special intensive revision of voter rolls. TMC delegation today met Chief Election Commissioner Gyanesh Kumar and put forward a list of concerns. So let's take you through those concerns first up. One is lack of transparency. TMC says Aero software still suffers from serious functional flaws. TMC also claimed in its list of complaints that SIR drive is being conducted without any publicly available guidelines. Hardships on vulnerable citizens was raised. TMC says mandatory physical hearing imposes hardship on senior citizens and PWDs. Allegations of bias as well, asking why no SIR in other states sharing border with Bangladesh or Myanmar. Private third-party players issue was raised, TMC saying that there is concern that people are being asked to share their personal details with firm datamation consultancy. TMC also said that state, district and micro observers are being appointed only in West Bengal. It has raised a concern that physical presence of migrant electors is an unreasonable demand being set forth as part of this exercise. Now, TMC has also claimed that the state is being subjected to exceptional and discriminatory scrutiny. Side by side, another fight is also brewing in Bengal with charges against the Bengal Chief Election Officer from the TMC, the ruling party. Bengal CEO, in fact, has tweeted a counter saying 2 complaints have been filed with the police against the CEC and Chief Electoral Officer of Bengal. They have gone on to say allegations appear to be premeditated, unsubstantiated and a crude attempt to browbeat the officers tasked with discharging statutory duties in connection with SIR 2026. Such intimidatory tactics designed to threaten the election machinery into submission and derail the process are undoubtedly destined to fail. No stone will be left unturned to unearth the conspiracy behind these serial and fabricated complaints. Unquote. Meanwhile, Abhishek Banerjee tore into the Chief Election Officer Gyanesh Kumar outside the poll body's office after their meeting earlier today, claiming Kumar lost his temper and deflected questions. Banerjee even said that he reminded the CEC that while Kumar is nominated, he himself is elected. Listen.
वो WhatsApp के basis पे directions दे रहे हैं. A government functioning is governed by official circular and notifications, not by WhatsApp directive.
Our next story takes us away from the travel chaos and into how the world welcomes the new year. While many ring in the moment with parties and fireworks, others mark the occasion in ways shaped by tradition and belief. In Spain, for instance, people eat 12 grapes at the stroke of midnight, one for each month of good fortune. In Denmark, old plates are thrown at doorsteps, symbolizing friendship and good luck. In Japan, temple bells ring 108 times to cleanse the spirit and welcome a fresh start. And in Brazil, many dress in white, symbolizing peace, hope and new beginnings. So different continents, different traditions, all welcoming the new year in their own way. Here's a report.
It's New Year's Eve, and around the world people are getting ready to celebrate. But here's the thing, not everyone is celebrating it in the same way. While some are partying, popping champagne or watching the fireworks, others are doing something far more unusual. In Spain, midnight is a test. You have 12 seconds to eat 12 grapes, one for every chime of the clock. You miss one, and you've cursed an entire month. So people race against time with cheeks bulging. Some choke, others laugh, but everyone tries, because who wants to risk a bad February? In Denmark, it's louder. People save old plates all year just to smash them at friends' doors on New Year's Eve. The more broken crockery you wake up to, the more loved you are said to be. In Japan, it's the opposite. They ring in the new year in a more calm and reflective manner. Buddhist temples in the country ring bell 108 times. Each chime represents a human weakness, greed, anger, or jealousy. People stand in silence, letting go of what weighs them down. They cleanse their way into the new year. In Brazil, the color white takes over the night. Millions dress in white and gather on beaches. At midnight, they run into the waves and jump 7 times, symbolizing one jump for each wish. They even throw flowers into the water as offerings. In the Philippines, it's all about circles, polka dots, round fruits, basically anything that looks like a coin. The shape is believed to attract prosperity for the year ahead. In parts of Ireland, families grab bread and bang it against their walls. The louder the better. It drives out bad spirits and invites good fortune. Romania goes full folklore. People dress as dancing bears and parade through the streets. The bear symbolizes strength and survival, so they roar, they stomp, and they become the animal that endures. And in Chile, some families welcome the new year in cemeteries. They sit beside the graves of loved ones, share food, and narrate stories. Because for them, the new year shouldn't begin without the people who shaped the old ones, even if those people are no longer present. So different countries and different customs. But look a little closer, and all these rituals are really saying the same thing. Whether it's a grape, a wave, a bell, or a piece of bread, people everywhere are reaching for one small moment of hope. A hope that the year ahead will be steadier, kinder, and better than the one that just went by.
"2025 is finally packing its bags, and let's be honest, for a lot of us, this goodbye comes with a sigh of relief. Because this was not an easy year. It had wars, it had inflation, food shortages, political tremors, and climate disasters. It was like living a decade in just 1 year, in 365 days. And for journalists, it was packed with breaking news, headlines that screamed every day. But also buried under those headlines was some good news. Stories that bring a smile to your face, moments that feel like a warm hug in a cold news cycle. So tonight, for our final story of the year, we are turning the spotlight away from the storms to the silver linings. And we will start with our planet. This year, we heard a lot about climate change. The Earth is warming up. Freak weather is becoming the new normal. And yes, all of this is happening. It is cause for worry. But there were also some wins. Remember the ozone layer? It is a natural shield in the Earth's stratosphere. It absorbs most of the sun's harmful radiation. For years, we've been saying that the ozone layer has a hole which is getting bigger. Well, not anymore. This year, the ozone hole over the Antarctic shrank to its smallest size since the 1990s. And the reason for that is human action. A ban on harmful chemicals has led to the shrinking, and that is something to celebrate. Then there are the sea turtles, little creatures that populate our seas. They've been endangered for some time now, but this year they're officially out of that list. Their population has increased by 30%, and this is due to protected nesting sites, also curbs on fishing imposed by many countries. So this year, sea turtles made a comeback. And speaking of comebacks, how can we not talk about dire wolves? They once roamed the Americas, but the last one was seen almost 10,000 years ago. Thanks to science, they're back now. Scientists have revived the age-old dire wolf, or some version of it. They used genetic engineering in grey wolf puppies to achieve this. That's not the only miracle that science achieved in 2025. This year, we also came closer to curing HIV. Almost 41 million people the world over live with HIV. Medical science still has no cure for it, but there have been major breakthroughs, and that could result in a new cure soon. Something that can treat the disease completely. Not just that, scientists are also closing in on a universal cancer vaccine. They have tested it on mice, and it successfully prevented aggressive tumors. So the next step is to test it with humans. Of course, not all heroes wore lab coats or saved species. Some just served tea, like 10-year-old Shravan Singh from Punjab. During India's Operation Sindoor, he walked for kilometers. He served water, lassi, milk and tea to our soldiers. Earlier this year, he was awarded for his fearless service. And he wasn't the only child who made us smile with pride. Meet Bodhana Sivanandan. She too is just 10 years old, and this year she became the youngest ever woman international master in chess. She defeated a grandmaster, the youngest girl ever to do so. And guess what? She took up chess only during the pandemic. Her parents did not even know that she was so good at it. And just when you think the list of miracles is over, there was the India women's blind cricket team. They made history at the first ever Women's T20 World Cup tournament. They lifted the cup. More importantly, they did not lose even a single match in this tournament. I could go on and on. More women-led top-performing companies, the biggest gain since 2021. Heart attack deaths dropped sharply across the globe. The world's biggest camera took the first photo of the universe. Renewable energy overtook coal as the world's largest source of electricity. Archaeologists discovered an entire ancient city in Peru. There are many, many such stories. So yes, 2025 was bleak. It tested humanity, but it also reminded us what humanity is capable of. Good news may not always break the internet, but it does bring a sense of hope. So as we step into 2026, don't just carry the weight of this year, do carry the hope too. This year did not just break the internet, it turned it into memes, from children shouting 6, 7 and parents scratching their heads to the Coldplay kiss cam moment, the sound of the Jet 2 holiday, the debate of 100 men versus 1 gorilla, and Labubus taking over our feeds and closets. Here's a roundup of the top memes of the year. Take a look. on our last show of the year. Wishing you all a very happy new year. But before we end the show, we have some visuals for you of New Year celebrations in countries across the globe. Thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
Hello and welcome everyone. You're watching The Hard Facts with me, Shivani Gupta. Violence has flared once again in Bangladesh, raising fresh concerns of the safety of minority communities. Another Hindu, Bajendra Biswas, was shot dead inside a factory. Police say the accused, Noman Mia, used a government-issued shotgun and he has since been arrested. But this killing marks the third attack on Hindus in the past 2 weeks. Days earlier, Deepu Das was lynched over alleged blasphemy and Amrit Mondal was beaten to death following extortion allegations. Such repeated incidents highlight the growing vulnerability of minorities in Bangladesh and the rising threat of Islamist forces, as well as the crackdown on dissent and free press. My colleague Pallavi Ghosh gets us the pulse from ground zero, highlighting the lawlessness.
The Daily Star, the charred remains of what is over here, is a reminder, and a grim one at that how Bangladesh, as it gets ready for an election, still has to encounter with a radical elements across the country. The Daily Star is continuing to make its production, which continues to show the spirit of the people here. But it was in the dead of the night where a large crowd emerged. There were around 30 people who were working on that shift on the rooftop. And believe it or not, they were stuck on this rooftop for hours because either they were not getting any help or they were too scared to come down. Daily Star has begun to print out their papers, but it was also seen as a certain article which was believed to be against what was considered, according to the Jamaats and the radicals over here, as anti-Islam. Now, Daily Star is continuing to make its production, as we are just pointing out. But as we travel across Dhaka and the country is getting ready for elections, it's also at a time when the BNP is emerging as the main contender. Khaleda Zia, of course, is no more, but her son Tariq Rahman is now ready to take the reins over. But the fact that the NCP, which is the students' wing, which was spearheaded that so-called revolution which unseated Sheikh Hasina, has tied up with the Jamaat, is a reminder of the grim fact that even if a semblance of democracy comes over here, as people of Bangladesh would want to think so, but it's these radicals who are continue to hold sway over the politics and ideology of the country of Bangladesh. And this is best epitomized when we see the kind of attacks on the minorities, not one but 3 Hindus who have been attacked. The Christians, missionaries have also been attacked. And the Daily Star's production is an attempt, a struggling attempt, many would say, to try and ensure that the freedom of expression, the freedom of speech continues over here as far as Dhaka is concerned.
Amid strained ties with Bangladesh, External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar was in Dhaka to attend the funeral of former Prime Minister Khaleda Zia and convey condolences on behalf of the government and people of India. He met Zia's son and BNP working president Tariq Rahman, in fact, handing over a personal letter from Prime Minister Modi. Bangladesh's envoy to India has given a positive signal, saying, and I quote, S. Jaishankar left Dhaka after a whirlwind 4-hour visit. Bangladesh and India would look forward to script new chapter in their ties. The ties must be on shared interests driven by pragmatism and interdependence, unquote. So the question remains, with the threat of Islamist forces on ground and attacks on Hindu minorities rising as some sort of a retribution against India, can India and Bangladesh achieve normalization of ties? Is there a will in Bangladesh to to achieve strong ties with India. Let's also go across to our guest joining us for more on this. Deepak Vora is former diplomat, Sabir Mustafa, senior journalist, and Rana Meher, Bangladesh analyst, also with us. Rana, I begin with you. Do you sense that there is a sentiment on ground that wrong steps have been taken in the past, possibly since the ousting of Sheikh Hasina, and India has been turned into some sort of an enemy, and that more needs to be done in Bangladesh to win over India's trust once again?
Thank you, Shivani. When you say wrong steps has been taken in the past, my question is the right step being taken now? I see the anti-India statement in Bangladesh is very much alive and kicking, which is backed by the current government and which is backed by the BNP, the Bangladesh Nationalist Party, as well, both by its supporter and both by the current president Tareq Zia as well. So, of course, wrong steps have been taken by Bangladesh in the past, and when BNP was in power in 2001, there were some significant wrongdoing took place. If I can remind the viewers of you about 2004 10-truck arms holes case, and BNP's Home Minister at that time, Lutfur Jamal Babur, he was acquitted of this case and the end of 2024. So I am not quite sure the right steps that you are mentioning, is it being taken place by Bangladesh, and will it be taking place in future? I am not very hopeful.
So, Sabir Mustafa, are we condemned to then having strained relationships with Bangladesh despite this gesture by the External Affairs Minister today?
Well, I think as long as the forces you mentioned, Jamaat-e-Islami and NCP, as long as they hold sway over government policy, I don't see any prospect of relationship improving anytime soon. However, BNP is a different kettle of fish. BNP is a very pragmatic party. They do play to the gallery. They will try to appease Islamists when they need to, but they will shy away from any extremist steps. Because we've seen Khaleda Zia's 2 terms in the past. She has given in to Islamist demands here and there, but not to the full extent that they wanted. Now, Khaleda Zia was a cold person towards India. I've met Indian officials who said during Prime Minister Vajpayee's time that they tried to reach out to Khaleda Zia, build bridges with the BNP, but she was cold towards them and nothing happened. But I think Tariq Rahman, having spent 17 years overseas, having gained some experience of how international diplomacy, international politics works, I think he will be a different kind of leader, not so rigid in as far as India is concerned, like her mother. I think he'll be more pragmatic and he will reach out. And the Indian government has taken a very astute decision by, utilizing this moment to send Mr. Jaishankar to Dhaka, because this is the first high-level Indian visit to Bangladesh since the fall of Sheikh Hasina. And this came in a somber moment for Bangladesh and for Tariq Rahman himself. So this kind of is a kind of move that can break the ice between India and a future Bangladesh government. I think India also knows that nothing will happen while this current interim government remains in power. So they're looking ahead to a Tariq Rahman government in the near future.
And Tariq Rahman coming back to the country, possibly enjoying greater popular support than the likes of the Yunus administration, even Jamaat-e-Islami or the NCP coalition that is coming to fore, Rana. Do you believe that they might show more pragmatism for the neighborhood, for their own benefit, and do away with the kind of provocative tone that Mohammad Yunus had adopted against India if they were to come in power? If the elections were to happen in a free and fair manner, and if they indeed were to be leading that election?
Shivani, because you ended with free and fair election, I'm not quite sure how the free and fair election will take place. When Khaleda Zia's nomination was submitted with her fingerprint, when we are not very much aware if she was able to consent for it, it is not only unethical, it is a criminal offense as well. So the election is in question already. And based on NCP and Jamaat, NCP is basically a gang, a student wing of Jamaat. That's how I portray them. And based on what we are seeing in a very recent, not even month ago, just a week ago, how NCP, they blamed India for Hadi's murder and everything, and they were, though they later sort of condemned of what happened, but they were very much in the front seat when they were blaming everything on India, what is happening in Bangladesh, including Hadi's murder and other things. And the Gong, who attacked two newspaper and two cultural organization, they were very much aligned with the same sentiment. So I'm not quite sure if they come in power. Again, sorry, I'm repeating myself again.
I understand.
In 2001, BNP was in power, Jamaat was in the same phase as well. So based on that experience and based on the current experience, sorry, I don't think that will ever happen.
So you're saying once, if at all they were to come to power, there's not going to be any difference in what was their stand 2 decades ago versus now. Prabhu Dayal, former Indian diplomat, is also joining us. Prabhu Dayal, I want to begin by asking you, how do you read into External Affairs S. Jaishankar's visit, meeting the BNP heir as well? And Chief, do you think this could help in normalization of ties between India and Bangladesh if, in fact, BNP was to reign supreme in the upcoming elections?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on your show. You know, ICE takes diplomatic move. And it has several aspects which are of strategic significance. You know, firstly, of course, the relations between India and Bangladesh have perhaps reached their lowest point in decades. And this has been following the ousting of Sheikh Hasina. So there have been, in fact, attacks on Indian diplomatic missions and very hostile acts. So by sending our top diplomat, India aims to highlight its role as a central partner to Bangladesh. In other words, we want to have a good relationship with Bangladesh, and that is the message which has been sent by the very fact that the External Affairs Minister has gone
Will
to Bangladesh.
BNP respond? Will BNP respond to the kind of responsibility that they may have in Bangladesh and in restoration of India-Bangladesh ties now?
Well, I was coming to the second aspect.
Yes.
The second aspect is reaching out to the BNP. You know, the BNP has been hostile to India earlier. But that hostility should not come in the way of a fresh start to a relationship. And that is what the message of the visit of the External Affairs Minister is, that we attach the highest importance to the role which the BNP can play in Bangladesh, and we want to be partners. In other words, we have sent out a message that we don't want an exacerbation of the tensions, rather we want an easing of tensions, and we want to build friendly ties.
Do you think, Sabir Mustafa, this is also a message to Mohammad Yunus and his administration, the gesture that has been extended to BNP and Tariq Rahman?
I think absolutely, definitely, that they have not sent any high-level delegation to meet the Yunus government or the representative all this time. And Jaishankar goes and meets Tariq Rahman, and message from Narendra Modi is handed to Tariq Rahman, who does not hold any government position. So this is India clearly signaling that we expect Tariq Rahman to be the next leader, and they are basically bypassing the Yunus administration totally. So for India, the Yunus administration has become a dead duck. It's no longer engaging with the Yunus administration, and they're going straight for a possible BNP administration. So Yunus knows that his days are numbered anyway. I mean, elections are in so a month and a half away. So that's not enough time to do anything at the moment. And India is playing along with that time frame in mind.
I want to ask you this before I go to the Indian diplomat. I've been wrestling with this question for some time. Is India dealing with strategic restraint and with the kind of patience a mature democracy and civilizational country shows? Or is India dealing with Bangladesh with kid gloves? Because despite the patience India has been showing, there are more and more atrocities against Hindus, for example, coming to light, and other provocations. Sabir Mustafa, you go first.
Okay, I think the people in Bangladesh, they feel that India is not treating them with kid glove. They think India is aggressive, overbearing, and hegemonistic. So that's the view of a large segment of Bangladeshi population. But people in government, people in policy making, they know that India does not apply any of its the power at its disposal against Bangladesh. And India has never been an overbearing neighbor, except perhaps in controlling the border, where a number of civilians have been killed by the BSF over the years, and this causes a lot of resentment in Bangladesh. So other than that, I think India has shown a lot of patience with Bangladesh. And I don't know, it's possible that India feels that Bangladesh eventually would be a natural ally and partner of India. So as not to kind of spoil the chances of the future relationship, they would not deal with any current problem with any heavy-handedness. So this, I think, is what India's policy is. But if you talk to a lot of people in Bangladesh, they would say, no, India does not give us this, India does not give us that. So they feel under Indian kind of hegemonistic pressure.
Yes, Prabhudeya, you want to add a little bit to it? What is going on as far as India's very measured responses are concerned?
Well, let me first state that the present state of the relationship is not good at all. There is hostility. But diplomacy consists of building bridges over hostile waters. And that is the attempt of our government. There is no doubt that Bangladesh is very, very important for us. It is a very major player in our East Act East policy. It's the neighbor of great concern. We have had a very good relationship. But because India was seen as being pro-Hasina, therefore after the ouster of Sheikh Hasina, there is hostility. We want to do whatever is possible to end that hostility. Of course, let me state categorically, I don't think that India is going to extradite Sheikh Hasina. That is out of the question because it is felt that the trial that she had was unfair, it was not a proper trial, and that the judgment which was passed against her was totally unfair. So the extradition is not going to happen. But, and this is a fundamental but, we can still build a close and friendly relationship because there are issues on which we can be partners, and that partnership is very, very important. River waters is one, bilateral trade, and then, of course, the overall context of the economic partnership. Now, let me state also that there are some concerns which India has for strategic reasons. Firstly, the chicken neck corridor. Secondly, the close relationship which now is being built by the Yunus interim government with the Pakistanis, because there are fears that this friendship would be used to infiltrate some radical Islamic elements into India to create trouble.
Yeah.
That is going to be their attempt. Of course, our border security forces will be on alert and prevent that. Then, of course, there is this question of the China-Bangladesh equation. So all said and done, it is in our interest to have a good relationship with Bangladesh. And at the same time, it is in Bangladesh's interest to have good relations with us.